Hi, Milind.
Yeah, hi.
Hi. Milind is representing one of the company that produce with PT bottles in the Maldives. Is the Maldives Saturated Water Company.
Yeah, so actually we are the authorized bottler of the Coca-Cola company for Maldives, and I'm
Exactly.
leading operations here in Maldives.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invite, and quite excited. I mean, I already had words with Afra on that, so thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you, Milind, for being here. And I see also Her Excellency Shauna.
Hi, hello, how are you?
Hi, thank you. Very good. Thanks for being here.
Yes, good to be here.
My pleasure, really. So we wait a couple of minutes more, and then we can start our promotional midpoint meeting for today.
Yeah.
Hi, Umar. Hi, Shifat.
Hi, colleagues.
Hi.
We're joining a little bit late.
No problem. Let's wait 2 minutes more, and then I can start with today's presentation. I think we are good to go. Afram, is there anyone that you know that is missing?
I think everybody that has confirmed with us is already here now, so I think we can start.
Okay,
So that
Great. So thank you. And thanks again for being here today. So this is the promotional midpoint meeting for the project that we are currently developing in the Maldives, developing an EPR scheme for plastic and packaging waste. The goal of this midpoint meeting is to retouch base in a way with all of you. We had a different discussion with different stakeholders, and we had already at least one meeting with all of you in the last 12 months. And we would like to show some of the outcomes we have achieved so far, and also show you the activities that are planned for the next 12 months. On top of it, we would love also to present some high-level points regarding the extended producer responsibility, just to give a bit more context and to also introduce the activities that we are going to implement from here till the end of the project. So, as you know, my name is Paolo Facco. I work on behalf of Philadelphia as an advisor. And together with the Zero Waste Maldives, we are developing this EPR project in the Maldives. The project is done on behalf of UNDP and the Ocean Innovation Challenge, and with the funding support from the Swedish and the Norwegian International Development Corporation, CDAP and NORAD. With any further ado, I would like to turn it over to the Ministry of Environment. I don't know if Her Excellency Shauna want to say some words on the current work done regarding plastic in the Maldives, and yeah, the stage is yours.
Would you like just an update on the phase out
Yes.
plan? Yeah.
If you
Okay.
have any presentation, otherwise it's absolutely fine. Just an update.
No
on this
presentation, but I can just briefly
fine.
explain. We
That's fine.
were very actively working with in UNIA in the plastic resolution. And when we were also able to have a successful outcome in it, I think Samha is on the call as well, and she was actively negotiating in Nairobi when this was going on. Also, we have been able to begin implementation of phase 2 of the phase out plan, where we have I can't remember how many products have been now, but also we have been able to enact the legislation on ban on production and usage of plastic production in the Maldives. So that looks good, and I think from September onwards, the deadline says that we will be banning production of single-use plastics in the Maldives.
Paulo, if I can just drop in. Rashfa has also joined the call, and I think she has prepared a presentation to give an overview of most of the work that's been done as well. Minister has kindly shared the exciting work that we have heard about in Nairobi as well, which is very exciting. And I think UNDP also would like to do similar work with SIDS countries, and maybe we'll go into that discussion a bit later. Rashfa, would you like to share your screen with us?
You are muted, Rashfa.
Oh, she's muted.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I have prepared a small presentation on the legislative work that will either support or contribute to EPR, as well as some works we are doing with some international and regional agencies who have supported our works in phasing out or banning some of the single-use plastics. I would like to first give a small summary of our single-use plastic phase-out plan. The main single-use plastic phase-out plan was published last year in April. We have 6 main policy instruments, which include bans and market-based instruments, and improving our waste data collection, which will also help us in the long-term work of reducing the plastic products as well as plastic packaging. In addition, EPR is also one of the main policy instruments in the phase-out plan, followed by sustainable provision of alternatives and education and awareness. The policy 4 mainly focuses on passing a legislation on producer responsibility on packaging, as a majority of the plastic products or packaging products in Maldives is imported products, and we have very few producers compared to other countries. We feel that the EPR should not fall on only the producers of Maldives, but should also include the major importers of these products that contribute to a large quantity of plastic waste that end up in our landfills at the end of the life cycle. We are hoping that by the when we ratify the waste management bill, that it will give support to works that would help us formulate frameworks for EPR. And in this way, we hope that the bill would be support to the work we are doing, as well as entities such as Adelphi and Zero Waste is doing in the EPR mandate. A small overview of the waste management regulation. The waste management regulation was published in 2013. Till date, we've had 5 amendments to the regulation. The most recent amendment includes several major components that will contribute to EPR. One is that we have redefined the implementing agency, as URA was developed recently and is now in one of the main implementing agencies. The amendment defines the separate roles and responsibilities and mandates of EPR and the different responsibilities of URA as well. Under the mandate, we have 2 major areas where we have waste segregation identified. One is Mala City, which includes Vilingili, Hulumal, and other parts of the greater Mala region. And the other is all outer islands and cities and resorts other than Mala City. We had to separate these out because, as you are all aware, Mala City is pretty congested right now, and we have a high density of population living here. So most of the houses do not have spaces for so much segregation. So in Mala City, we have 3 main areas. One is biodegradable waste, other is plastic waste, and all other remaining waste will be removed from the household together. So we have 3 components in Mala City. And in other islands, we have also added the component of glasses and metals as a separate segregation. This is the minimum standard of segregation that is required, but depending on the resort or the city or the island, if they are able to segregate it further to make their waste management better, they are allowed to do so under the regulation. Next, the bulky wastes and the municipal waste should not be mixed, even though we have segregated areas, and the bulky waste should be removed separately by the waste collectors. At the same time, it mandates the waste collectors and the waste collection mechanism to be decided by the municipality or the council under which the municipality falls under. So they will decide whether they will collect the plastic waste, for example, once a week, or if they will be collecting the biodegradable waste every day, or how they will plan it will depend on each municipality separately. We are not going to influence how the decentralized governments are going to manage their wastes, but we have only defined the segregation areas. At the same time, the service providers will have the right to refuse collection of waste if the waste comes mixed. And after collection, it is mandated that the waste should be transported in a manner that the waste is transported separately and in its segregated form. And fines will be imposed on any party that are not following the regulation as amended by the 5th Amendment. The waste management bill is currently has been submitted to the Attorney General office. They will review it and they will submit it to Parliament by mid this year. So we are hoping it would get approved into an act in the near future. The main areas under the waste management bill include mandates of the various agencies under the act. This includes ministry and the councils as well as the implementing agencies. The bill defines that the waste the waste reduction goals will be set every year, and the necessary information should be provided to URA. Under the EPR article of the Waste Management Bill, it is importers and producers both fall under the EPR framework. And after the EPR framework is or regulation is enacted, the main areas it will be focusing on, and I would like to note it won't be limited to this, but the minimum areas that it would focus on will be the products and the various actions that will be taken under the regulation, the parties that are responsible for the end of life products, and also the parties that will be responsible for the packaging waste, as well as it will give the legal power to establish a EPR framework or program in the Maldives. As Minister has mentioned, we recently signed a global treaty on plastic pollution, and we took a stand because of the increasing amount of plastic pollution and how much damage it was doing at a local and at a global scale, especially in terms of sustainable development. Several countries, including Japan, India, Peru, and Rwanda, submitted the draft resolution, and Maldives took a stand to support it in the by working with the AOCs to have a mutual understanding among the 6 countries. Maldives ensured that this global treaty will reflect the government's SUP plan, and activities in both are in alignment of each other. And we hope that this treaty will strengthen the implementation of the Maldivian government's SUP plan to curb plastic pollution. Almost 81 countries have supported this treaty, and we are hoping it will increase as it goes. As I mentioned before, we have several regional works ongoing in the area of single-use plastic management. In 2019, we became a member country of the Commonwealth's Ocean Alliance Action Group. At the same time, we are working with IORA. They will be supporting the strategic framework on marine debris in the Indian Ocean. We are also working with Osaka Blue Vision. They are contributing to the G20's report on actions against plastic pollution. At the same time, we are working with the SIG's Home Project, which supports, we are supporting the project in partnership with USAID to phase out single-use plastics. That's a small overview of what we are doing right now. And if you have any questions, me and I think Samha is also available to answer your questions.
Thank you very much, Rashmi. It's very comprehensive, thank you. And I'm really happy that some of the points that you mentioned will be also touched during our presentations today. So especially regarding the scalability and also which additional work needs to be done in finalizing the EPR scheme for the Maldives. If there are no other comments, I would like to turn it over to Mary from UNDP Ocean Innovation Challenge, just to briefly introduce the project and the work that the UNDP is doing on that. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Your Excellency and colleagues, for a really exciting presentation so far. This is, I think, more than we even dreamed of when we started the Ocean Innovation Challenge, and we're very excited to see it moving forward. And let me also say to everyone who's joining, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. We are really excited to see what Maldives government, Zero Waste Maldives and Adelphi are accomplishing under the Ocean Innovation Challenge. This was initially set up, the Ocean Innovation Challenge within UNDP was set up through UNDP headquarters to really foster innovations that would address SDG 14. And we're looking specifically for those innovations that would be transformative, replicable, scalable, poverty reducing, and gender mainstreaming. When we received the application from Adelphi and Zero Waste Maldives for this with a strong country ownership, we really felt like this had some wonderful potential and have been very excited that in our inaugural first round of innovators, that we are definitely seeing the wonderful results already coming to fruition. I'd like to congratulate Maldives on leading the way for extended producer responsibility in SIDS, and we are eager to do everything we can to help that happen. We know that around the world, ocean plastic is a huge problem. Extended producer responsibility is the key to addressing it. We can't just clean up the ocean. We actually have to stop the waste from going into the oceans and into the rivers in the first place. And I also want to thank the various corporate representatives for being here as well, because this is a problem, a challenge, not a problem, a challenge we all get to overcome together, because that is how challenges get resolved. It's exciting to see this from the inside as well as from the outside with the wonderful results in UNEA. And we look forward to supporting Maldives to become the leader in extended producer responsibility in SIDS, and then in line with the Ocean Innovation Challenge mission to replicate this and scale this up and make something that is both transformative and potentially poverty reducing. So thank you all and congratulations, and especially to Paolo and the team for your wonderful work. We're very excited with what you and Afro have been doing and are exciting to see what we have ahead.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you very much. We have UNDP, together with our support, has prepared a short video on this assignment, and just 1 minute long, and I'm going to play it right now.
Every year, the Maldives generates over 2,500 tons of plastic waste. Due to poor waste management practices, as much as a third of it ends up in our coastal areas. With the support of the Ocean Innovation Challenge, we are helping the Maldives put in place a national extended producer responsibility framework. This will help the Maldives close the loop on ocean plastic pollution. Last year, we worked closely with the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Technology, other government agencies, and the private sector and key stakeholders to understand the plastic flow into the Maldives. We have taken steps to ensure that the EPR will be a key component in legislation such as the Waste Act that will be presented to the Parliament. Moving into our second year, we look forward to presenting the comprehensive EPR concept paper and roadmap to the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Technology and the President's Office.
And thank you, Afra, again for the video. So now, in the next minutes, we would like to show you what has been achieved so far regarding the project. Just to give you a recap, the project is a 2 years long project that started in March 2021 and will last till the end of February of 2023. So as a lot of you already know, the final goal of this project is to create an EPR scheme to address the problem that's created by the management of waste of plastic waste in the Maldives, and this will be achieved via 3 main outcomes. So the first outcome is mainly the bulk of the work that we have done so far. Help us in understanding which is the situation on ground in the Maldives in terms of waste generation, but also which are the main stakeholders working on it and which policies are present that are present in the country that are supporting our work. In parallel, we are already starting in engaging with the main stakeholder in giving them a clear understanding about what the extended producer responsibility is. And we had already some meeting with them, as I will show in the next slides. But this work will continue along the entire project to the end in February next year, and together with the outcome tree that will be the design of the EPR scheme itself. And this will be done really together, working with the Ministry of Environment and the President Office of the Maldives. In terms of progresses, after 1 year, we have analyzed the legal framework and engaged with the several stakeholders to get a better overview of the entire situation in the Maldives. Conducted a roundtable workshop and collected data on waste management and partially on the import of plastic waste into the country. On top of it, we have conducted feasibility study regarding a potential future material recovery facility in the Maldives and also for a producer responsibility organization. And on top of it, we always try to engage with the audience, the larger audience via social media website, raising awareness about the activities and on what EPR is. As a first point, we address the legal framework in the Maldives for EPR. Afra, if you wanted to present the next couple of slides, I know that a lot has been already said during the ministry presentation, but if you have anything to add on top.
Yeah, so it's very, I'm very happy to report that really this government has really put in place a lot of policies and is working a lot towards phasing out single-use plastic, and it can be seen that there's a lot of work done on that front as well, because it's mentioned in the strategic action plan. We've got a parliamentary resolution as well that has been sent to parliament, and there's also the single-use plastic phase-out plan also, which is announced by the government alongside a waste act, which will give legal power to actually phase out a lot of the single-use plastic and also bring in EPR. So there are a lot of key steps being taken by the government, and we are seeing that slowly move forward, which is very exciting to see, and which is really exciting to be a part of. So as a main contribution from Zero Waste Maldives and Adelphi as part of the EPR process, we contributed to the Waste Act. Paula? So the Waste Act is a major component of the Waste Act is also giving legal power to implement extended producer responsibility framework for the Maldives. So that allows us to put in place check and balance measures when there are importers and producers that fall under the Act and under specifically the EPR component. So this really is the stepping stone to ensure that we can implement EPR in the Maldives, and that is being facilitated by the Ministry of Environment, and we thank them for their support in this front. Next.
Thank you. Then, in the first year, we, as already said a couple of times already, we have approached a different range of stakeholders. In totally, as of today, we have spoken with 116 different stakeholders in order to get a better overview of the situation in the Maldives. We did do this via meeting and interviews, surveys, a roundtable, and also site visits. So we engage with the stakeholder from a public level, with the Ministry of Environment, President Office, Custom, the waste management company, and also with 70 local councils to understand in this latter case better which are the dynamics regarding waste management on the atolls and on the local level. We spoke with the private sector so with Coca-Cola Maldives, with Coca-Cola South Asia, and many others, both producer that produce in the Maldives their product and packaging, but also with the biggest importers. And also with the company that manage the transportation of goods in the Maldives, to understand also which are the challenging and the costs behind the transportation and the management of waste in the country. And then we continuously touch base with the international stakeholders. We know that there are ongoing projects from ADB, World Bank in the country. We have been not able to have a representative from both ADB and the World Bank today due to prior commitments, but we are constantly in contact with what is currently happening in the Maldives in terms of other projects on waste management. We have collected here some pictures from the meeting that we had, just for your reference. We had the chance to have a site visit in Sri Lanka, both for myself and Afra, where we had the possibility to touch base with the recycler, especially with EcoSpindles, that is the biggest recycler in Sri Lanka. And this is the news of today, published on the online journal, that EcoSpindles is also interested in scaling operations and entering into the Maldivian market for the PET recycling. And this was really interesting to understand also the dynamics that are behind recycling and therefore behind the circularity of certain type of plastics. And then we had already 2 roundtables. The first of it was back in June with the Ministry of Environment and the President Office, where we presented the project set and the EPR schemes on a first introduction to the EPR scheme. And then we did the same in November 2021, when we organized a roundtable workshop together with the main industry, so both producer and importers in the Maldives, also to make them familiar with the topic of EPR, as part of that, if you remember, that outcome 2, that where we need to increase the awareness and the knowledge around EPR in the country. Then another very important point that we are still working on it, but we can consider some of the figures already finalized, is to understand the size of the plastic waste generation in the country. We have seen there are data is always a challenge when we are working on this space, but luckily there have been some recent publication that we were able to rely on, and we understood that the amount of plastic that currently generated in the Maldives would be around 20,000 tons per year. Our triangulation gave us 29,400 tons per year. Of them, we can divide between single-use plastic and PET bottle that are locally produced. So there is a part that will be imported that we haven't analyzed yet, plus other type of plastic packaging that are not considered single-use plastic. That also is a significant part of the total amount of plastic waste generated. Another important point that we addressed in the first year was a feasibility study for a material recovery facility. So we got to know that there is already a very good level of discussion regarding a material recovery facility in the Maldives. There is an agreement between MOE, Asian Development Bank, and Parley to build a future sorting line in the country, and this would be a kind of really backbone for the future entire collection. Because as of now, material doesn't get sorted in a way that can create a market behind the separate material. And the initiatives that are currently done are mainly based on a single initiative, for example, the Parley one. Nevertheless, our feasibility study tried to understand costs and size of a potential facility that can separate plastic from mixed waste. And we got that the figure that a 70 tons a day capacity of a semi-automated one would be a good starting point for the country, not able to manage all of it, but at least to get a first stream of clean plastic separated from it. Just for your review, this number is very similar with the size of what ADB and Parley are going to mostly likely to implement, and this in a way confirm our result. And yeah, the envisioned type of material that could be separated are PT, HTP, LDP, and also PP on top. So those ones that have a market, but currently there are no recyclers in the Maldives. So the majority of material will be exported. Therefore, as I said before, the chance of getting a recycler interested in entering the Maldivian market would be really beneficial for the entire circular economy situation. Another thing that we did in terms of feasibility study was to understand which are the costs around the waste management, and let's say management of plastic waste in the country, to see where are the higher costs that a future comprehensive waste management and partially also under the EPR scheme should be covered. We have realized, as you can see here, that the majority of the cost rise from the transport of the material. As we know, Maldives develops across more than 500 kilometers north to south. So, and the transport can rely only on vessels that are currently taking the material from the islands where waste are generated, transported them to Tilafushi, that is the main landfill. On top of it, as of now, the few materials that get separated and ready to be recycled needs to be shipped abroad. A lot of them get shipped currently to Taiwan with a cost that is incredibly high. So almost the double of the cost of transportation between the islands. And therefore, here, our study is more comprehensive. I wanted just to show you which are currently the main challenges behind the collection and the management of a plastic waste in the country, and where should future fundings go to act in order to have a more sustainable and circular management of this type of waste. Okay, this is in a kind of a nutshell the bulk of the activities that we have done so far. Obviously, it's not possible to show during such a short meeting all the results, but we are really keen in sharing with you more results if you are interested more in deep results. If you have any questions so far regarding the past activities, we are happy to answer to them before to jump into the upcoming one. No questions? Then I can continue. So now we have other 12 months to go. These are crucial. So in the next months, we really need to develop this EPR scheme and concept paper, and we will need to sit together with the main stakeholder, with the MOE and the President Office, and get it done and ready to be transposed into legislation at the beginning of 2023. In the next slide, we are showing what we are doing now in order to finalize some gaps, but also to get more insights and know-how on how to finalize the scheme. Afra, the first point of which presentation is always your one. Do you want to to briefly present this point.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. So we are still in the process of matching the data. So like, of course, like we've got a wide net of data, and we've collected that initial data set, but we want to triangulate it further. We don't want like to, we want, obviously it will be an estimate of like the overall production, but we want to have it as close to the real values as possible. That's why we're trying to triangulate it using customs data, because customs is really the main entry point into the Maldives, and it does have a lot of data. It might be a bit all over the place sometimes, but still that is the most reliable data source that we can work with. And that customs is a key stakeholder in the EPR process as well. So we've been using their data, and we've been working with them very closely. We're also trying to get more of the production data, like detailed production data from the producers. And we do have verbal agreements which will turn into NDAs with the producers in the country as well. So we'll get more comprehensive details on specifically the PET production, as well as the other HDP, LDP, PP, and the other materials that make up the single-use plastic in the Maldives. Next, I would like to go into a breakdown of some of the data that we've been trying to analyze and make sense of. So just from like around 70 plus codes of HS codes that we've been analyzing as single-use plastics. This is just one component, one HS code, and one product from that HS code. So this particular product is called Royal Tiger. It's like a small energy drink that's about 250 ml. And this is the sort of plastic packaging makeup that it has. So it's the packaging weight is about 24 grams, and this is from the total imports that it constitutes about 72% of soft drinks under this HS code, which contributes about 7 tons per year in terms of the plastic generation. So potentially, if we triangulate this further, this HS code could contribute 51 tons of plastic into the country. So that's sort of like how we are going about looking at this information, and this will get triangulated further as we process like more products that are being imported into the country. So we've got some breakdowns of what's being imported and how much in liters and these kind of numbers. So we are in the process of combing through that data and then trying to make sense of it. Next, Paula. So this is sort of a snapshot of the data set that we are looking at. So there are about 63,533 products that have been imported into the country. So these are just at the product level, and sometimes they don't really have brands associated with it. Sometimes they have multiple products under a brand. So we've got about 5,500 products, brands being imported into the country. So we have to figure out from this huge data set which ones are the most key products that we'll have to actually measure and figure out their contribution in terms of the plastic being generated in the country. So this is a major task, and this will actually take up a bulk of the work that we are doing in terms of processing this information. So in the next 2 months, once we get the data set, like the full data set from the ministry and the customs services, we'll be processing this data as soon as possible and trying to get that triangulate that value as close to what is real as possible. That is really what we've been up to in terms of like trying to match these data sets.
Thank you, Afan. And adding on that, that's really important also because the entire monitoring of the material that is imported, as also Rashfa said at the beginning, is a crucial for the Maldives. And we hope that our initial work that we are doing now on the HS codes will allow us, and then to transfer the know-how that we got to the Ministry of Environment or to all the entities that will be working to DPR in the future. Transferring this know-how would be beneficial for the Maldives in just that. So obviously there will be a lot of work that we need to do on that. We are aiming on having this data finalized by end of May, and then we can share with you our findings in the next months. Another work that we are doing in parallel is to see what has already happened on EPR or what's happening around the world on this topic. And to do this, we will study some of best practice regarding EPR. For example, some of EPR cases for plastics in Europe. And we are currently studying the German one and the Spain model. But on top of it, we are also analyzing other realities. For example, the South African one, that was really good in order to increase in a really significant way the collection of PET in few years. But also we are trying to get closer to the regional, to study realities where waste management practices are similar to the Maldivian one. Just for example, regarding the best practices, DPR Germany sometimes is recognized as one of the best models. Is a really complicated one. Honestly, that I don't want to enter in discussion now, but what we are going to try to understand is once that EPR will be approved. So we need, Maldives will need to create a type of management system that will run this, and we'll try to get significant figures in order to understand what is really achievable in the next years in terms of collection of plastic packaging via an EPR system. These numbers, as I said before, are numbers that are have been reached after so many years of DPR is there, but we want also to compare with kind of new realities or initiatives that are happening on this space. For example, it's very interesting that India finally notified EPR for plastic packaging. It will be implemented from the July 1st. So what we know so far, there is still a draft around which materials, which entities will be called to be part of this scheme. But we will observe very closely what's happening there. At Adelphi, via other projects, we are also working together with the environmental minister in India. So the learning that we get from there can be also very beneficial to understand which are also the legislative paths that are required before to set an EPR legislation in force. And with all the know-how that we will get via these activities, plus the know-how that we got already during the last year, we are going to develop an EPR manual and video that will be also given to the Minister of Environment, President Office, or any other stakeholder that want to promote EPR on both on a national level, but also on an international level. As mentioned before, Maldives is active in different type of international agreements. So this can really push the EPR also outside the country. And yeah, we expect to have this done by August this year. And but we will let you know. Maybe there will be also a presence required from the ministry side or from other stakeholders. We will let you know on that. But just to keep in mind that this will be one of the tangible final products that our project will have. Then we have other two workshops to organize. So far, the idea of the roundtable were more to discuss with the stakeholders and transmit to them know-how regarding DPR. But we think that the next roundtable will be crucial in order to sit together and start working on the scheme itself. So starting to understand who should be involved in EPR system and which other type of monitoring system needs to be in place, all different points that I'm going to discuss also in the next slides that will be crucial. And we are aiming in having these two roundtables done, one between June and July and one towards the end of 2022. Obviously, we don't want just to stick on this. So if more roundtables, more consultation from also from the ministry side is required, we are always happy to support you and to have an extra meeting because we like our job at the end of the day. Okay, so and now we are going to explain towards what will be the final outcome. So one, we are going to develop a roadmap with different future scenarios. So to see how an EPR and how different type of EPRs, because EPR, as I will show you later, is not just one product, can have different phases. So which setup can be the most suitable one in order to achieve a certain type of waste management. So modernized one, a really innovative one. This will be all of different scenarios that we want to present to you, and based on this scenario, to brainstorm together which will be the final form that this scheme will have. And regarding this form that of the scheme, we will deliver at the end of the project a concept paper on EPR, where obviously together, as said already, with the main stakeholders, we are going to basically identify 6 main points, 6 main components that an EPR could have. One is focused mainly on the obliged industry, so which are the parties that are mandated in being part of an EPR system. So as Rashka has already said before, local producer and also importers have been identified. This is basically absolutely comprehensive because it reflects EPR that have been present all around the world so far. We know that the importers play a huge role in the Maldives, and yeah, this will be part of the obliged industry. But the finalization of the identification on that will be inside the concept paper. On top of it, we need to discuss and identify the type of material that will be covered by an EPR scheme. Understanding also, and I think it's really important here, how a ban from one side can also, the relation between the ban of certain product with the fact of inserting certain material into the EPR schemes. Then the role and responsibility of different stakeholders. For example, as the presentation of Rashford before, EPA or URA have been mentioned as potential entity. This would be also identified, and some of the understand also which are type of challenges or kind of training that certain entities will need in order to be able to cope with this new concept. We will present also, we suggest the setup of the PRO, and we will show you a bit later what is really a PRO is. Then the targets and monitoring system. So here is more related to, okay, which which goals should be achieved by the EPR. So in terms of in terms of collection, then means also recycling, but primarily is collection, and how this will be monitored in the Maldives. And on top of it, we want also to provide with a suggestion how to foster circular economy innovation. We know that there are already companies that are moving really toward a circular economy solution. So having the material more recyclable, let's say, converting everything to a mono material to make easier to get recycled. So all these types of exercise or innovation that the industry, the private sector is doing, this should be in such a way, could be at least recognized under EPR schemes. And this will be also part of the component, or one of the components of the concept paper. Okay, so I spoke a lot of EPR. Now I would like to go more in detail on that. But first, I would like to ask if there are any questions on that. If anything is not clear, we are more than happy to clarify. No? Then I can continue.
Actually, one question I've seen, or I've been wondering about is, are there any plans to work with recyclers who are a bit closer, like in India, perhaps?
As I said before, yeah, absolutely. This is crucial, because as of now, the only example that we have is Taiwan, and Taiwan is really far away. We know that there is an established recycling market in India, but also in Sri Lanka. As mentioned before, we visited EcoSpindle, is the biggest recycler in Sri Lanka. They recycle only PET bottles into fibers. So it's not, let's say, a circular bottle to bottle, because this requires also a level of legislation, food grade, permits, and so on. But they have a kind of state-of-the-art technologies, and they are interested in getting into the Maldives market. There was an article of today that, I don't know if Afra, you have this article, or someone can share into the chat, that they are really interested and keen in entering into the Maldives. And I think this will be really crucial, Mary, because if you want to collect plastic, this should go somewhere. And the costs that are present now to shipping the material out of the country are really high, as I showed you in the table below. But definitely, this will be part of the work. And also maybe we can, as we did for the MRF, we can also understand if there are any type of permits, or how we can boost the presence of recycler in the country.
Great, thank you.
Thank you too. Thank you, Afra. So Afra just shared the article that was published today, and yeah, for your reference.
Sorry, Paolo, if I may ask another
Please.
question, because I think Akiko also asked it as to why it was shipped to Taiwan versus other closer destinations. And then my other question was, you mentioned the case of South Africa, and what can the Maldives learn from there? Over.
Yes, two very good questions. So regarding Taiwan, this was the outcomes of our discussion we had with Parley for the Ocean, that is currently the biggest collector of PET in the country, and Parley has its own market. Basically, they have agreements with the recycler in Taiwan, because they recycle material into high quality products. And for them, this is the closest recycler. The business model behind them is different from the business model that many recycler waste collectors have. They produce really high quality material able to sell for a lot of money. So therefore, in such a way, they are able to cover this cost. Something that if we do like a business, a normal waste collection system, we will never be able to cover this huge cost of having shipping to the Maldives, into Taiwan. Therefore, as Mary said, we need to look for closer marker, ideally in the Maldives. Therefore, the recycling in Maldives would be very much welcome. Regarding the second question, South Africa. South Africa has been one of the first EPR system in the worldwide. They started with PET back in the 96, and they were able to get very high collection rate in few years. We are there. We use this one kind of an example, but we also need to realize which are the differences between the two models. For example, in South Africa, that system that was initially voluntary rely a lot on the informal sector. In Maldives, the informal sector is not present. And also, there were already some recyclers, something that's not in the Maldives, but in terms of legislation itself, how is it structured, how is the obliged industry declared, and all the mechanisms of DPR, I think that the South African model can be a very good example for us. So different realities from a point of view, but in terms of legislation, we don't have to create the PRO now. We need to advise the Minister of Environment regarding the legislation, and there could be very good learnings from that.
One question. Is there any potential to have to promote this recycling facility in Maldives, to build a smaller one that can make recycling for these plastics, or there is no potential for that?
We have to look into it, honestly. This would be a game changer, Ahmed. The news is of today. We would like to also to get back to eco spindles and to understand this. But
the reason I said that, because many countries now will ban the transportation of plastic. So you have to build your own facilities in the country. China started with this now. They have very strict regulations to receive plastic waste, and many countries will follow even after this declaration from UNEA. So I think it's better to study the potentiality of building even a small scale facility for recycling of plastics in Maldives.
Exactly, totally agree. And also because it's difficult also to ship now plastic without any level of pre-processing to Sri Lanka now, because it's still characterized as a waste. And that's also one of the reasons why it's shipped to Taiwan, because Sri Lanka would not accept in the way that Pali ships the waste. And then on top of it, and that we need to be also pretty straightforward here. Is super important point, but we need also to discuss together to see also which is the impact of certain legislation to that. Because from one side, if the ban will happen on PET, so maybe a recycler doesn't have an interest anymore in coming there because there is no more feedstock. So it's always not that easy. So we need to understand based on what is the current legislation, where we are moving towards, if there is room for future investment. If we see under a circular point of view, would be the best solution. We will try to sit again together with the same table with the recyclers and also with the ministry to understand if there are synergies and type of support that can be provided from both sides. Alfred, do you want to add anything on that, or?
I also agree that we need to have local manufacturing, especially if we are talking about circular economy and if plastic is such a problem for the country as well nationally. Just setting up facilities that are local also adds more value as well. So like when we went to Sri Lanka and met Eco Spindles as well, like I also mentioned to them that, you know, like you can potentially produce the fabrics that they are generating from the PET in the Maldives, and then you can potentially also add sell it at an upmarket value because you're saying that it's ocean plastic sourced from the Maldives. So these kind of value added advantages are also available, and bringing production close to home also adds more expertise to the country. So there are multiple areas where we benefit out of. So I think it is a very beneficial route to take, and I am fully in support of having local recycling facilities in the Maldives. Shifaz, do you have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Afra and Paulo. Maybe just to add to the line of questioning that is happening right now. One thing that we often hear when it comes to recycling facilities is that would we have sufficient volume that's future-proof? The other thing is we do have certain investments that are coming in Tilafushi in terms of a more updated and modernized waste management and sorting facility. What sort of projections are available from the future development that is to come? Is there room already built in for this type of sorting facility, or is there room to build more? I think that's also a question, not necessarily maybe to get an answer here, but something to look into.
Absolutely. Yes, and therefore we're in discussion, in contact on discussion with Pilot and ADB, and because there are certain things that are beneficial for the entire Maldives and can also very good for the future EPR. For example, we have seen that the ADB from one side is trying to standardize the transport by a vessel in between the islands to Tilafushi, and this could be also in the future very good because we can understand now which the dynamics are, which the cost, and then the EPR can, with time, we try to understand how can be cover part or totally of these costs. And but yes, we will work on that. See, this was not thought at the beginning, it's a recycling facility, but then there is a good momentum. A lot of things are happening, and we will try to get a good understanding also from that side. Any other questions? Does it look so? So I jump briefly into what an EPR is, just for who is not familiar. Lot of you know already, we have presented them, but just to give a bit more insight. So EPR is a policy approach, basically, where the producer will be responsible for the management of the product once that it becomes waste. So this means that the responsibility will be of the management of this will be shifted toward the producer, and but must not be seen like only like a fees, for example, but also can be seen for as a kind of tools that can foster innovation. So, for an example, the fact of having more recyclable plastics or more recyclable products, sorry, or having less quantity of material present in the products can be beneficial both from the producer, because as a less material put on market, but also for the entire waste management system that has to cope with less amount of waste. The benefits of an EPR are several. So first of all is to reduce or minimize the impact of these products on the environment and try to use resources in a sustainable way and more secure as possible. Behind that, the way to get this is to increase the collection of this material, specifically in countries like Maldives, where the collection rate of this material is really, really low, and ideally to find circular solution, as we discussed it until now, getting those material recycled ideally close as possible to the source. And as I anticipated in the slide before, to get innovation on that. There are companies that are already working a lot on this direction of getting material more recyclable. During my trip, for example, in Sri Lanka, I got to know that Coca-Cola is now selling, for example, the Sprite bottle no more in a green bottle, but in a clear one. This is very good for the recycler, for example, because the green color is always seen as a contaminant. Now having everything of a clear PET would be easier for the recycler to get basically all material there and not to need to sort them in different colors. These are just an example of what's happening on the region. There are a lot of other examples that we are going also to include in our study, but to show how these progresses that the technology is doing and the industry is doing can be recognized under an EPR scheme. The scheme, an EPR scheme, has to allocate the responsibility. The responsibilities are of three types, just to make it easy to understand. First of all is the financial one. There is a collection of funds that will be present, and the EPR should collect this funds. Then, with this, say, money, operation must be paid. For example, the transport of material from the islands to a future recovery facility, but also to build new infrastructure. As we see now, a lot of islands are lacking of facilities where waste can be stored in case pre-processed, making the transport really inefficient. For example, material is only sometimes baled before the transportation. This what means that when it's transported in a bulky form, take a lot of volume, so need more trips that are highly costed in order to get all the material collected. And this is something that can be covered under an EPR scheme. And plus there is a really crucial point, there is the informative one, where awareness must be created behind what EPR is doing, but behind the entire collection of plastics and the materials, and also a reporting of the collected quantities that understand continuously what is the amount of material put on market. Therefore, what Afra explained to us 20 minutes ago regarding the work that need to be done to understand the imported amount is crucial and can be really beneficial also in the future for this reporting exercise that the EPR schemes needs to do. So, keeping in mind that EPR is a policy tool that say, okay, the producer are responsible for the management of the waste until of the product once they become waste. Worldwide, there are different types of setups for EPR. There is a mandatory one, and that's the case of the Maldives, how Maldives is doing via the Waste Act. So the law lays down specific tasks through the legislation. Otherwise, in some other cases, as I said before, the South African one was voluntary. So initially, some industries started say, okay, we want to achieve higher collection of our product. Let's do a kind of voluntary EPR. In our case, we know we are moving toward the mandatory, and we have to keep this in mind. Then, an EPR scheme can be individual or collective. So individual means when one company achieve the targets that the government, for example, has set by its own. But as we know, a lot of companies, they don't deal with waste. They deal with selling their products. They don't have a know-how in getting waste collected. Therefore, they join forces with our producer, and they mandate a third party, the so-called PRO, to coordinate the entire waste management. And this is the most common practice around the world. Then of PRO can be just one in the country. In this case, it's called monopolistic, or can be several. This is called competitive. The competitive one is something that starts to get even more common in Europe, because it has been noted that can be a very good way in order to boost innovation, and where a producer can decide to go to the PRO that he wants. But for a country like Maldives, as of now, and it is just our internal thought, a monopolistic one should be the starting point. Also, given that not the huge amount of material that is generated, and also the limited space, limited geographies that the Maldives has. And then on top, this distinguish between kind of mandatory voluntary is when a DPR can be industry-led, so the system is established by company, or state-led, so it's run by public authority, usually as part of the department within a ministry. And as Rashva said before, the EPA or the URA can be potential future entity that can run this system. I want also to show briefly this because I spoke a lot of PRO, but PRO is meaning producer responsibility organization, is this legal entity that organizes the compliance of producer. There will be some targets, for example, that the government will set in the future, and the PRO will achieve these targets on behalf of the producer. That's why PRO is kind of the core, or is the engine of the entire EPR system, because it's the tool that the producer will use in order to get their targets achieved. Then every PRO is that has a specific, for example, kind of amount of fees based on usually on how big the size of the company is, meaning how much material is put into the country. A fees or tax we will put in proportion. And sometimes in many countries in Europe, for example, is mandatory to join a PRO in order to avoid the so-called free rider. So basically, companies that are not paying any taxes but are anyway achieving the targets that they are supposed to get achieved. Then, and now we are going a bit more in details here, but I don't want to be very boring, which I will be pretty fast. So there is not one solution for EPR. We have seen around the world a lot of type of system. There is the deposit refund system, where a person pay a deposit when buying a bottle, and this system and this money get basically back in order to entire system in order to finance the returning to the recycler of the bottle. There are advanced disposal fees, where when you pay a product, there is a small component of it of the price that will be used to manage the product once it becomes waste. There are tax on materials, for example, when material that done 100% by virgin plastic can be taxed more than those ones that are at the container recycling content, connecting with what I said before. So some innovation can be always have some advantages. In this case, getting lower taxes being paid, or can be type of subsidy in case that, as I said, company use a virgin material recycled material instead of virgin one. These are all type of instrument that can be inserted in the EPR scheme at the end. There is no the best one. Each country has its own specificities, and is our goal, and also sitting together with the President Office and the Minister of Environment to understand what fits better with the country, and also with the goal that the ministry want to achieve. And on top, there are other type of policies. There is the take back requirement. So the products get collected by the producer in order to achieve a certain percentage of recycling rate that they have. This recycling rate can be kind of targets that the company have committed in achieving. So as we know, a lot of FMCGs company around the world have set targets to be achieved by 2025 or 2030. But there are also targets that are set by the government that sometimes are even tougher to get achieved, but need to be achieved because they are legally mandated to do this. And in this case, a company can, as I said before, join forces under PRO and create another entity to achieve this goal. Recycling content standard, I said before. And another important thing that I inserted is the mandatory reporting. And I think this is kind of crucial in a country where, like Maldives, where there is unclarity behind the amount of material that enters the market. So we have seen examples. I said India before is going to follow this path. But another example that I know very good is the Singaporean one. In Singapore, there is no EPR, and the first steps that they did was mandating the company in submitted data regarding their put on market. So only knowing this data will be possible to understand the size of the problem and how much can be basically targeted in terms of waste management under an EPR scheme. And that's the part on EPR. This was sounds like a university lesson, sorry. But if you have any question, I'm really happy to answer.
Just to reiterate,
Please.
we'll make the whole slide deck available for people who want to go back and study this at the University of EPR that you're setting up. Yes.
So again, Nari, sorry, I didn't understand. Well, I was reading one comment. My bad.
No problem. I was just going to say you'll make the whole presentation available for those of us who need to study at EPR University a bit more that you're setting up currently.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
It's a learning, but I did learn at university this. Anyway, it's a learning by doing a lot of things, best examples around the world, and we try to make it easy also for you and for the governments in order to get it in a clearer way.
Perfect. Thank you.
Most welcome. Did I see a raised hand? No. Then there is the last part of today's presentation, and there will be, but it's not the less important one, is regarding the sustainability and scalability of the project. So, Minister Shauna and Rashfa has already introduced this, and the global plastic resolution that was signed last week in Nairobi is really, let's say, it's been set as a historic day in the campaign to beat plastic pollution, because we develop a legally binding agreement. So, and this is very good, let's say, for the Maldives, but for the entire world, because it's created a new momentum behind this. And what we really think in terms of sustainability and also scalability is that we, as an entire person engaged in this EPR scheme, really need to promote and scale these examples beyond just Maldives. Therefore, or better, first, this just to give you a better overview for who is not very practical with this resolution. So the resolution is binding, but there are no yet specific targets that have been set. But there are discussions on that. We have I have two colleagues in my department that also co-work in some of the part of this resolution, and brainstorming with them, they told me that can be that the most possible type of examples of mandated or rules that would be created will be that one to eliminate the use of necessary plastic, to require each country to produce its own national action plan in order to reduce the plastic waste footprint they have, and also to boost mechanisms in order to improve the waste collection and build recycling plants. So this goes really hands on hands with what we said so far. And we really think that the work that we are doing now and what we are developing the next months can also use by the government to spread the voice behind EPR. So we will work in the next months in sitting with the government, finding the DPR system, but this will should go in a way also beyond the project conclusion. The transportation into the national law will require time, and will be available in getting in provide support if required on that. But also on top, if the EPR, when the EPR would be in place and the PROs would be seen as a crucial part of it, there are a lot of lesson learning that we are collecting now. We will try, we will give to provide to you our learnings by the end of the project, but we are also will be very supportive in terms of exchanging knowledge between already existing and well-running PROs with the new realities that the Maldives is going to introduce from the next year, we hope. And getting back to what I said regarding this conference and the entire work on EPR scheme. So as far as I know, Maldives is one of the few SIDS countries that has started this EPR journey, but is not the only country that has similar challenges in this regarding waste management. So usually SIDS countries have a high dependency on tourism sector, something that Maldives has. If I remember correctly, after 40% of the GDP comes from the tourism sector in the Maldives. There is a low waste collection rate, high internal, but also external transportation costs. Think about country like can be Fiji or Tuvalu or Seychelles, where most likely no recyclers are present there. And exactly. And the presence of this they're not present, this recycler, as a consequence that to ship out material has a huge cost and no one wants to bear this cost. So sometimes circular solution cannot be basically applied on certain SIDS country. EPR could be a good solution. It could be the right tool to do this. Therefore, the learning that Maldives is currently getting via this project can be really beneficial also for the other 51 SIDS government that are interested in tackling plastic pollution. Now, it was great to see what Rashta said before about different type of organizations and agreements where Maldives is. There are some upcoming conferences planned this year that I don't know if Russia, I don't know if the MOE has any plan to attend this conference. At least I mentioned our ocean conference in Palau or the UN Ocean Conference in Portugal in June, July 2022. I'm sure there will be other conference or kind of roundtable between this six country. Is there anyone that you are aware of on top of these two? If you are trying to speak, maybe you are still on mute. If it's not, I want just to say that maybe we will not have in June or July our EPR schemes finalized, but we can surely support providing the MOE with material, informative, for example, the video or the manual once ready, that can be support the entire spreading of the voice and work around EPR worldwide. And yeah, this was my last question. Sorry, my last slide. And yep. So, are there any questions on that? I just put some guiding questions. We see that there are already some a couple of representatives from the private industry. If they to understand if they're already working on something similar or any other points or thoughts that can support our work is much welcome. Ahmed, please.
Yes, thank you, Paolo, for this interesting presentation. One of the major challenges in recycling of plastic or any recyclable materials is the separation at source. And this is a real challenge we faced in Egypt. It's one of the major issues for the solid waste management in Egypt is how to encourage the households to make this separation. Even we wanted to make separation of liquid and solid only. So you have two containers. And this is we found difficulty to implement. And this is make the separation very costly. And sometimes the recycling, the recyclable was even get mixed with the wet and organic, and you have lots of problems. So have this problem in Maldives, or has been solved?
The government is taking steps on source separation at the moment. So like a lot of work is being currently done to improve source separated collection in the Maldives, but currently it is mixed. So at every stage of the transport, like it is still currently mixed, but that hopefully will start changing in the next couple of months and years. With source separation is really a very tough job to even begin. So I think we are moving in the right direction, but I think it will take a long time before we can actually implement it fully. Yeah. But it is a much needed step towards circularity as well. So I think that we are moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Okay. MRF can be beneficial, obviously, but if there is no separation at source, the material get high contamination, and the interest of a recycler in getting there when the feedstock is dirty the interest is not there. So we need measures before in order to try to boost this type of industry and getting their interest in coming into Maldives. Akiko, please.
Thank you very much. That's a very, very interesting presentation. Sorry, I'm going to look at that. Okay. Just one question about the EPR, since we are in this University of EPR. the scope of responsibilities of EPR. So, you said that, those three different responsibilities, that they don't have to be, carried by one entity, right? So yeah, I understand that. But then, so what's the end of EPR? When the responsibility ends? When it became a waste, or when it becomes a recyclable resources?
It starts when the waste, when the product becomes a waste. So the problem, a certain product becomes a waste. So we say, okay, who put this material on the market needs to cover the cost that this material has from its generation point, let's say households, until when it gets ideally into the door of the recycling center. Can be now that recyclers are not present in the Maldives. It would be really, sorry for the term, stupid to collect something separate and put into the landfill. But in that case, the EPR should cover the cost from the collection, transport, and put into the landfill. So from the beginning, from the generation point until hopefully the closure of this circular loop that can happen when the material gets recycled.
So the responsibility, that scope does not cover the actual operation of the recycling center.
No,
that becomes
this one would be because recyclers makes profit from that. So we provide it. So, but sometimes, and this is an interesting point, honestly, where we are thinking a lot behind. Sometimes what happens, the recyclers are also keen in collecting the material from a certain point, from a facility where material gets sorted, to take them and recycle it. So in that case, the coverage should end where in this facility the material is sorted, because the rest of the costs are covered by the recyclers. But Maldives is a unique case because first, recyclers are not there, and the cost, as you saw before, to transport the material from the Maldives to Sri Lanka are so high that make the product, let's take a PET bottle, not that interesting for a recycler in Sri Lanka, because the price to buy it, included transport, is higher than the price of PET generated in Sri Lanka. So what can an EPR do? This is just an idea, thinking loud, is to cover or subsidize part of this cost in shipping the material from the Maldives to the recycler outside Maldives, in order to make the price of the material coming from the Maldives still competitive compared with that one that is locally produced, for example, in Sri Lanka. Is this clear, or was too much university-wide?
No. The reason why I asked is that in terms of the incentives, what kind of incentives does this give to industry, right? Yeah. And so when we are pushing for EPR, and then if the industry has an option of, okay, I don't want to hear anything about EPR, but I rather finance the recycling and the material sorting facilities. So I don't want to deal with in the middle, until I sell the product. Mm-hmm. And somebody needs to collect, somebody needs to operate the recycling materials and everything else, but then I can invest on the recycling, the material, that facility. There are industries and the corporate who would rather invest in that because they don't want to change the production side of things. Yeah. So we want to, but we kind of want to give a incentive, or this incentive for the industry to move towards the EPR, because just keep financing on the waste sorting facility is not going to solve a problem.
Material needs to get collected.
But it's not going to solve a problem. It's not going to bring a transformative catalytic, the circularity in the whole. Yeah. So I was just wondering, how this EPR and then that investment, how they come together and how they, how the industry will see those different things as options. So that was just one question. Just some comments that two comments. One is, yeah, I really want to see that, because this is a, this is a very targeted and small, the scale, but the very targeted interventions and projects. So I really hope that in case of Maldives, it's not going to end with a, just a desktop exercise. It's going to be something that the Maldives can really use. And that's a challenge. It's a tall order, because there are so many SIDS who have, done quite a few analysis done in the past for SIDS, in terms of the economy of the recycling, can really SID, make a economically viable recycling, product in the cycle system. To date, we haven't seen one. The Indian Ocean side, and they had to ship in everything to Kenya, but it doesn't. Okay, and or they have to switch to glass instead of plastics, and or the Caribbeans even try. Even Caribbeans, there are so many islands and they're quite populated. Even then, it's not up to date. To date, it's not economically viable to complete it, the cycle within one country. So whether the Maldives, they're gonna export, or they're gonna complete the cycle within a country. Either way, that's just an option. But then I hope we can come up with some, the economically viable options with, plenty of policy measures, with the presidential level commitment. I think that's something that we don't have all the time, but with the presidential level commitment, we can actually create this regulatory economy. And so that's one. And two, your EPR guidance and EPR, this lectures, that was very useful. But in the second half of the project, I really want that to be tailored for SIDS. So some of the options already that raised could be applicable for Manila, but not in SIDS. So we have to really get down to what's viable, and then just limit the options among those that are viable in SIDS. And then so they not all the SIDS has to start from scratch. And then if also in the same process, if we can help SIDS crystallize the SIDS specific challenges when we go to this recycling or circular economy, then the SIDS government might be able to bring that to the negotiation table. Now with the UNEA, the global signatures, there will be a negotiation table, right? And now so for SIDS, they cannot they cannot have water shipped by pipe. All the water has to come in bottles in many of the islands. So I think there's some solutions and some challenges, some restrictions there are a lot of SIDS based SIDS specific ones. And then I wonder if we can help them at the negotiation table so that they can get some support from the other countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiko. Well noted the comments. Any additional comments from the Minister of Environment? We have also from the President Office here, or from the industry. Amit.
Yes, sorry to take the floor again. This EPR system is not only depends on the private sector. You have to have a regulatory body who will monitor and regulate this whole process and make sure that every party, because we have different parties in this involved in this system, so there must be a regulatory body who will monitor and evaluate and even sometimes put fines on the parties that is not following the rules and regulations of the system. Otherwise, it will be just, yes, because as you said, that the responsibility is, you have to know where is the responsibility of the private sector, and then the recyclers, the collectors. All this has to be managed by a central body who will be responsible to put the regulation and monitoring and this regulation.
Absolutely. Yeah, especially in this case where when the all put on market must be declared, we need always a triangulation point. So the PRO can collect the data, but then we need this EPA, or we need to identify who will be the best one, or the utility regulating authority, to cross-check and to.
In Egypt, we created a body.
Or that.
We created what we call the Solid Waste Management Authority that is responsible just for putting the regulation. They are not implementers.
Yeah.
They're just putting the regulation and monitor the implementation.
And what Rashfa showed before in the presentation of these two potential agencies goes very well. Let's see, this is a part, this is crucial, and there needs also to be appointed into the regulation for sure.
Yeah, at the moment, like the current utility regulatory authority actually has sort of that power granted to them by the act that formed the utility regulatory authority, and even under the Waste Act, it would really specify who will be the authority that will sort of regulate and oversee the process as well. So most probably we'll see one of those agencies take control and implement it, while also having maybe like a PRO setup where they do the implementing, and then the government's actor is really one of those environmental or utility regulatory bodies from the government side, I think. But I mean, that mechanism is already in place, just that we had to figure out what your role would be in relation to EPR. And we will obviously will have to tie in customs as well, because a lot of the data will have to come through them, and then the PRO. So there'll be a lot of interagency collaboration, I think, when this when this gets implemented.
But don't mix regulation with implementation, because this is a conflict of interest. You have to have a regulatory body and implementing agencies.
We have that conflict of interest a lot in the Maldives, so we'll try to avoid.
We
that
had it.
as much
We had it. That's why I'm saying please try to avoid this.
Lakshan, I see that your hand is raised. You have the floor.
Thanks, Afra. Thanks, Paulo. I apologize for my voice if it's a bit hoarse. Just wanted to mention a few comments. Thank you once again for inviting us to this call and meeting today. Just to introduce myself, I handle public affairs, communications, and sustainability for Coca-Cola in Sri Lanka, Maldives, Nepal, and Bhutan. I'm also a sitting member on the National EPR Committee for Sri Lanka for the past 3.5 years, as we roll out EPR later this year in Sri Lanka. So I have been representing industry on that roadmap and journey since 2017. I'm also was a member of the informal sector, so I was very involved in collection of plastics, particularly PET. To the first point on the guiding question slide, which Paulo put up, I'd like to just say that, Coca-Cola in Maldives, we are very keen to partner with the Minister of Environment to design and, action and implement EPR in the Maldives, like we have done in many other parts of the world, as I mentioned, in Sri Lanka as well as India. One of the lessons learned, if I can just share some learnings from our journey in Sri Lanka, is that definitely we see EPR as the preferred policy practice globally, especially when it comes to recyclable post-consumer plastic packaging. We find it as a policy instrument that should be practiced on recyclable packaging, especially recyclable plastics. Early in Sri Lanka's journey, we were also the government was very interested in looking at single-use plastic bans and phase-out bans, even on particular recyclable items. But once the industry, civil society, everyone came together, the understanding soon shifted where the treatment of policy of EPR and banning would be differentiated on non-recyclables and recyclables. And our journey began in that sense in 2017, 2018, when EPR, which was a project funded by USAID, involving the Ceylon Chamber and the Ministry of Environment, looked at two pilot packaging items of PET and high-intensity polystyrene, yogurt cups, etc. And we wanted to formulate, and we did, a public-private partnership that would undertake bringing in voluntary EPR into Sri Lanka. And the chosen model that we have now decided to go on is the mandatory reporting and collect back system, where targets would be set on industry to collect back and recycle year on year, scaling that target, as well as mandatory reporting the production and sales data. But this distinction was very clearly made, which I think really supported a lot of the industry to get behind it. More participation took place because soon you realize that items that were supposed or planned to be banned, especially in the recyclable category, shifted to the EPR focus, which brought in a lot of support from industry. So I believe that's an important point for our discussion as well in the Maldives as we go forward on this journey to bring in EPR. And another important aspect is design. Design is very crucial as we look at collection, as we look at partnerships which involve government and the private sector and civil society and even the media. Design is important, and to the point which Paolo mentioned, Sprite was introduced in the Maldives for the first time in any of our markets in India and Southwest Asia in clear packaging. And in fact, even Bon Aqua, which is in glass, we removed the blue tint and made it in clear packaging in the Maldives. So design is also a very important, I think, aspect that we need to bring in and consider. We are very focused on ensuring that all our packaging that we use is recyclable. And we are looking at putting in a lot of investments and partnerships to scale our collection. My colleagues, Milind, Aruna on the call, and so already voluntary EPR is taking place in the Maldives. We're doing the same in Sri Lanka, and we're doing a lot of work on island collection, reverse logistic programs, resort collection, and there are more plans in the pipeline, including an MRF in the Maldives, which is to be supported through our funding and intervention. So I'll just one last comment on the Eco Spindles piece. It's interesting because they're an organization I've known for over a decade, and we work very closely with them in Sri Lanka. So Dr. Anush, the CEO, who Afra mentioned, met recently as well in Sri Lanka, is keen to explore and look at investments in recycling in the Maldives. And that can take shape in many forms. It could be setting up a sorting, a washing line, whether it's hot washing or cold washing, and bringing back the flakes to Sri Lanka, because they have the license to import PET flakes into the country to make their yarn and their brushes. It could be an investment opportunity for an entrepreneur in Maldives with a buyback agreement with Eco Spindles in Sri Lanka. So there are options on the table. There's definitely scope that we can explore, and we're happy to facilitate those discussions, including, if required and if needed, workshops involving the Indian government and the Sri Lankan government on their road to EPR and the journey that they took. We are happy to support and facilitate because in both markets, we've been very involved with the government on EPR. Thank you. Just some comments from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Lakshan. I appreciate it, really. And yeah, the last idea of getting know-how from similar, from regional experiences and share with Maldives would be also beneficial for one of our activities. Let's see what we can do.
Thanks, Balu. Thank you.
Any additional point? Otherwise, we have 5 minutes to go. And I wanted just to present the next steps. So we will have here by May the data collection plastic waste generated completed, the work that Afra has presented before, together with a review of the successful EPR practices globally. Then DPR and manual and video published in August, and then finishing the roundtable and developing DPR concept paper by February 2023. So I honestly think that there is a lot to do. So we did a research part so far, but now we need really to, it's time to sit together with the key stakeholders and having this EPR, give a form to this EPR and demand this, and also, as Akiko said, tune specifically on the needs that the country has. And also, as I continue in the chat with Ulfat Ibrahim from a President Office. Thanks, Ulfat. And yeah, happy to see that the President Office and the MOE are keen in making their voice louder on international level. We can, together with UNDP support, really support you in getting this done. So let's chat separately. I will be also in the Maldives in 2 weeks. So in case we can also meet and discuss on that if you agree, if you are available.
That sounds really good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Then we are, let's say, on time. Yeah.
We would expect nothing less from you, dear. That's wonderful.
Okay. Then, so thank you, Mary. And I really thank you, everyone who are here today. And I will share the copy of the presentation, has been already requested. And yeah, I hope to see you very soon, hope also in person, because these Zoom meetings annoy me. But yeah, and let's have this EPR done, and we'll keep you posted. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Paolo. Thank you, Paolo.
Thank
And
you.
also,
Thank
we
you.
will be glad to put this presentation on our webpage for anyone who wants to come back, or the video for
Okay.
anyone who wants to come back and watch it or refer friends or learn even more.
Okay.
If you're studying for your exams in EPR and need a refresher. So we'll be putting that up, and our team will be coordinating with with Paolo's team to do that. So thank you so much. I'm so excited with the work you're doing and the ability to put this other places. And before we run over, thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, all the stakeholders. This is great.
Thank you. Thank you all. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.